Welcome to Convince Me. We are back for the conference championship round of the NFL playoffs. This is the top of the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the fluff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, and Chris Raybon are going to convince me the best bets I should make for today's conference championship games. Plus, we got Evan Abrams with market reports, trends that make you sound smarter than your friends. We will also bring in Dr. Nick Giffen, who's going to take us through the latest need to know from our luck rankings at the bottom half of the Power Hour. Gilles Gallant and Brian Matthews will preview the best touchdown props on the board today on the Touchdown Show. Don't forget, like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page as you're watching this show. All the picks we discussed today are tracked for free in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it today. All right, first game up, we're going to talk about the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, taking the Commanders into the fighting city of Philadelphia. They're 6-point underdogs. The total is 47.5. This game is on Fox at 3 p.m. Eastern. Reminder to everybody, the fastest way to tell all of our experts will be using the quick slip links that are provided in the YouTube chat and in the episode description as the guys give out their picks. Speaking of, Sean Koerner, you're 7-2 this postseason on player props. That should be enough to convince me to take what you say here, but I'm not that easy. What do you got?
Well, I'm going to go with Austin Eckler under 5.5 rush attempts at -102. And if you remember the opening round, I was all excited looking for ways to invest in Austin Eckler. But that has more to do with his pass catching upside, and he's been great the first two rounds here. But I think this is the market to fade him today because he's coming off a game that was literally the best case scenario for Eckler to see essentially his ceiling in terms of rush attempts. I mean, the Commanders beat the Lions by 14 points. They ran the ball 42 times, and Eckler only finished with 6 carries, so barely clearing this number. But I'm expecting, around 14 fewer rush attempts for the Commanders here. So that's going to be a big hit for Eckler in this market. And, the Commanders, they've only trailed for 28% of their snaps this season. That's the 6th lowest rate in the league. But they're 6-point underdogs today. So I'm projecting them to trail for around 50% of the snaps. And, the Eagles are also, they're an extreme run-heavy team that can dominate, in terms of time and possession and lower the overall play volume of the other team as well. So they've allowed the second fewest plays per game. So after all that, I'm projecting the Commanders for 28 total rush attempts here. And again, Eckler's main role is the pass catching back. So I think they're going to use him in screen passes and dump offs as an extension of the run game today, and he'll be heavily involved. But I'm still projecting him closer to 5 rush attempts here with about a 60% chance he stays under 5.5.
That, my brother, is some fantastic analysis. Wow, you nailed that. Nice job. It is hard to resist you, Sean Koerner. It really is. All right, Simon, talk to me.
Got some trash analysis for you here, Chad. Give me the Eagles -6. This is one just feels like the worst spot you possibly could be in if you're Washington. Last week, I begged people to take Washington. That was a bad number, an amazing spot. This is the complete opposite. This is a terrible spot for this Washington team. And none of the trends, none of the numbers you dive into really back up this Washington team. And it really starts, well, where you mean you love it, Chad, in the trenches. This is pretty simple when people really break it down, that this matchup is going to be won and lost in the trenches. And I mean, you went back to that Green Bay game. Green Bay lost their all-pro guard against the Eagles team. That game completely flipped. Once he went out of that game, Green Bay could not move the ball until about 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Why? Because the Eagles have one of the best front D lines in all of football. Same here. Sam Cosmi is one of the most important players to this Washington team. Like, when you break down the numbers, this guy's an absolute beast animal. Ridiculous he didn't make the Pro Bowl. He is one of those guys that's just severely underrated, but he is incredibly talented when you break down the numbers. And then on the flip side, now they've lost arguably their best D tackle in Payne. I mean, a guy that, if you're not a football head, you might not know. Washington, this guy's an absolute stud for these guys on the other side. And you look at the run rate, success rate, basically who's on the field, they're about average on first down run rate, right? They're pretty good, middle of the pack. When he's not on the field against the run and first downs, they're dead last in football this season. So the difference is night and day with this guy being on and off the field. So right now, they're missing arguably their best offensive lineman and then their best running defender against the run. It's a bad spot for this Washington team. And then when you break down all the trends, Chad, we know it, right? We know rookie quarterbacks in this exact spot, 0-5 straight up, 1-4 against the spread in the history of the conference finals. We know, it's a big deal, the fact that they're on the road for their, fourth straight game. Teams in the exact spot, 0-7 straight up, 1-5-1 against the spread in the spot. So it just does not look good for this Washington team. When you really look at it, I get the fear people have. The betting public right now is coming heavy on this team because they think Ertz is injured. And on the flip side, everyone just loves Commanders team, Jane Daniels. So to me, as a pro bettor, this should be 7.5. We're getting a free point because the public absolutely loves this Washington side. So take this value here, grab that -6 on this Eagles team.
Simon, I've got family in Philly, and you are the least trashy person I know. Philly. And that analysis was so good. I couldn't agree with you more about the challenges that the Commanders are facing in the trenches. You and I have talked about Cosme all week. The news about Payne yesterday, I immediately went to the Action app after I saw the news about Payne not playing and was looking to see if this number moved to 6.5. I'm astonished, honestly, that this line has not budged off of the 6 the entire week. It is indicative of all the public love for the Commanders and for Jaden Daniels in this spot, and I get it, but wow, the Eagles will control this line of scrimmage. These are huge advantages for the team from the fighting city. All right, Raybon. Koerner, he really raised that bar. Simon jumped over the bar. What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you Zach Ertz. It sounds like you like the Eagles, so we'll go with the former Eagle here. Zach Ertz over 3.5 receptions. And I agree. I think that, losing your best guard on the interior, that's going to hurt. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to throw short underneath passes to guys like Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz. And if you follow this kind of Washington team throughout the postseason, the one thing that's really been a story is just how well Jaden Daniels is playing against the blitz. And, he just eviscerated the blitz in the first 2 playoff matchups. And Vic Fangio in that week 16 matchup where Washington came back, he also blitzed a lot more than he ever really has against anyone. And Jaden Daniels just tore that up too. So I think the one thing in this matchup you're going to see from Fangio is less blitzing. He's going to play it a little more straight up. And that's when Zach Ertz really gets his most targets. He just a 16.5 target per route rate against the blitz. But when the opponent does not blitz, that goes up to 21.5%. So that's a pretty big increase there. So Zach Ertz had, I think it was 6 catches in the first meeting. That's kind of the defense that I'm expecting Fangio to play in this spot. Ertz has been over this in 11 of 18. He had 5 catches in the game against the Detroit Lions last week. I think he's going to be needed to kind of move the chains and get the ball out of Jaden's hands early and often in this one.
Well, look, I do love the Eagles here, and I'm going with Simon and the Eagles side at -6, but I also love the correlation between Eckler under 5.5 rush attempts and Ertz over 3.5 receptions. If the game is going to play out like I think it will, with the Eagles dominating and the Commanders needing to come back, fewer rush attempts for Eckler, more opportunities, more targets for Ertz. So I like the idea of playing all 3 of these. I will end up playing all 3 of these. Maybe I'll do something, this popular new bet that everyone loves called the SGP. Might same game parlay this, but my choice is the Eagles -6. All right, I've been talking about all the love for the Commanders, and we love to fade the public. Let's take a look at where the majority of betting tickets are according to the Action app. For those who are new, the number of tickets generally represents who the public likes. The money percentages also available in the app indicates who the professionals like. No surprise, 67% of the tickets coming in on the Commanders. That has been the trend the entire week. We are looking, if we also look at the 73% of the tickets coming in on the Bills, some kind of unprecedented trend here in which the lower seeds that are the underdogs are getting the majority of the tickets against teams that are such recent Super Bowl combatants, against a running back who could be MVP of the league, against a quarterback who might be the best quarterback in the history of the NFL. People instead are betting on Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels. What a time to be alive, Evan Abrams. Bring it in.
Yeah, these bettors seem to want these upstart teams, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing today. But I'm going to focus in on Buffalo and Kansas City for a second. So Patrick Mahomes has made 131 starts in his NFL career. He's only closed with 33% or less of the ticket count, so 1/3 or less, once. 131 starts according to Action Network betting data. Now, that was back in 2023 against the Chargers, but if you look overall, he's closed with 40% of tickets or less just 4 times. 3-1 straight up in ATS in those games. Ironically enough, his one loss at home against the Bills back in December of 2023. So we will see how Pat and Kansas City does today. But let's focus in on Washington and Philly, which you guys just talked about. So the Commanders beat the Bucks as underdogs. Then they did it to the Lions again. And now they're going to try to do it to the Eagles as underdogs again as well. Now, when they go to the Super Bowl, if they win today, they'll be underdogs in that game as well. So Washington will try to join the 2007-2008 Giants, 1985-86 Patriots, and 80-81 Raiders to be dogs in the Super Bowl after winning as dogs in the wild card, divisional, and conference championship games. Now, speaking of that game, before I pass it back to you, we can get on to some more bets. We're going to talk about the prop of Saquon Barkley. So earlier in the week, it was up to 130.5 for his rushing prop, which according to all the different operators and even our data, the highest we've ever seen in a game. Now it's down to 122.5, maybe 125 in the market there, but it has come down about 5 or 6 yards. The funny thing is, if you add up James Cook, Brian Robinson, and Kareem Hunt, which would be the top running backs in the other teams, it doesn't even reach Saquon's mark. Now, when you talk about records, most rushing yards in a season, including the playoffs, Saquon is 148 yards shy of that record. Terrell Davis, 1998. And the record he'll be going for if they make the Super Bowl, that'd be John Riggins, 610 rushing yards, 1982, in an entire playoff campaign. So we will see if the Eagles can advance and see how Saquon does. 130.5, just absolute insanity.
That's wild that it's come down as much as it has. Evan, as you know, Simon and I were talking about Saquon's rushing props on the favorites, I think on Tuesday, maybe it was Thursday. And while we were on the air, the number moved from 127.5 to 129.5 in real time. That thing was attached to a rocket ship. So I'm surprised it started to sink a little bit. Folks, do you want access to all of our experts' picks as soon as they happen? What about our pro prop projections powered by Sean Koerner and Chris Raybon? You get all that plus real-time bet and money percentages with Action Pro. Use code POWER20 and get $20 off the annual rate. That's POWER20 for $20 off. The game everyone is saying is the Super Bowl. Before the Super Bowl, the 4th time the Buffalo Bills are playing the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. The over-under is 47.5. The Kansas City Chiefs, depending on where you look, they could be 2-point favorites. They could be 1.5-point favorites. This game, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. CBS. Sean Koerner, start us off.
Sorry, I got excited there. I'm going to go with Keon Coleman over 19.5 receiving yards. You can get it at -110 right now. But, the Bills moved on from Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis in the offseason, and they've really just opted to spread the ball around a ton this year. Raybon and I have said this has been one of the more challenging groups to project week to week. That's why I faded Matt Cullen's reception prop last week. But I'm actually looking to buy low on Keon Coleman specifically here, who's been pretty quiet over the first 2 rounds. Of course, during the draft, the Bills passed up on Xavier Worthy in the first round, ended up taking Coleman in the second round. And I was really curious to see, how they'd use him this season. He's really been in the Gabe Davis role where he's not going to see a ton of targets, but when he does, they're typically downfield, explosive plays. I mean, hopefully, he taps into 2022 Gabe Davis, that 200-yard, 4-touchdown performance against the Chiefs. But, his average depth of the target this year has been 15.5 yards downfield. which leads the team. He's also been really solid after the catch too, so he could clear this with a single catch. So this is a game where the Bills they're likely going to be a little bit more pass heavy, more aggressive than usual to keep up with the Chiefs. So I think that could lead to just more looks Keon Coleman's way, especially if Trent McDuffie ends up on Khalil Shakir for most of the game. That's going to free up Coleman on the outside. So I think that's a great buy low spot for Coleman since, again, he's only got 10 yards all postseason so far. So I'm projecting him closer to 26.5 with about a 61% chance he clears 19.5 yards.
All right. Well, when he's been on the field, Josh Allen has definitely liked to look for him deep, and he's made some fantastic catches when he's been on the field. Simon, what do you got?
Going with the Chiefs -1.5. I can't believe it. I'm the voice of reason talking about being on 2 home favorites here, Chad. But it feels like the betting public's betting with their heart, not with their heads. And this is another spot where it feels like even if I showed them the end results of this game, the final score of this game, the Chiefs winning and covering, they'd still bet the Bills. It feels like it's that type of week. People just keep on making excuses for Josh Allen, this Bills team, even Shefty's taking shots at Mahomes and this refs this morning. It's everyone just piling on this Chiefs team. No one wants them to win. We get it. We're all tired of this team going for the 3-peat, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't bet this value, people. This number should be 2.5, 3. You're getting a free point here. 1.5 is just a gift. I really can't believe here we are Sunday morning, and in the Action app, it's 80% of the money, 80% of the tickets coming in on this Bills team, and you can get the Chiefs right now -1.5. It's pretty incredible. And Evan had some amazing trends that we were running through on the show that I just want to bring back for this show, just because they're just amazing about how impressive Mahomes has been in this exact spot, and why I get why people are sick of him, but you're leaving free money, it feels like, on the table here. Like, this is just such a nice spot long term to bet on Mahomes. You're going to win long term. So we already know January, February, Mahomes 15-2 straight up at home or a neutral site. That's insane to even wrap your head around. We can go even further out. Okay, home games November or later when temperatures are below 40 degrees. Mahomes 23-2 straight up. It's insane. Like, it really is when you wrap your head around it. Okay, let's go with the spread then. As a favorite of 3 points or less, or an underdog, 27-9-1 against the spread. And the icing on the cake for me, we know Josh Allen, impressive guy, incredible career. The one issue he's had his whole career is this Mahomes thing, right? 0-3 in the playoffs. That's brutal, right? Especially when he's done so well against him in the regular season. People aren't talking about it enough. Josh Allen's 0-3 on the road in his career. He's lost in Houston, and he lost twice against the Chiefs. It's different. Orchard Park, we've seen they've been a better team than the Bills, especially in Josh Allen's career. When they go on the road, it's different. And I think that's the exact scenario here. You're in Arrowhead on the road against Mahomes, and you're on a team that's, got $70 million in dead cap. Where is that showing up for this team? That shows up on their defense, a team that couldn't afford to lose any guys. Now they have a banged up Milano. They're losing guys in their secondary. It doesn't line up for the Bills this season to me, Chad. I think this just is, people are excited because they want the Bills to do it. We get it. We all root for the Bills fans, right? Diehard fan base, 0 Super Bowls. Who doesn't root for them? But don't let your heart mess with your head here. Bet the smart side. Bet the Chiefs -1.5.
I'll add one more stat to your run on Patrick Mahomes. Not only is he 23-2 in that November, December, January window when it's 40 degrees or less, he's won 20 in a row. The last time he lost was Tom Brady in 2019. And by the way, Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes and an extra day of rest is 23-2. I think that's the number. I'm looking at my notes here. It's pretty close to that. 14-1 at home with Patrick Mahomes. Like, this is a big hill to climb for the Buffalo Bills. If you can't tell, I like the Chiefs here too. Raybon, what do you got?
All right. Well, now that you guys are finished beating Chris Collinsworth and just glazing Mahomes, I'm gonna take James Cook over his carries, 14.5. Listen, you can talk all the trends you want in the past, these playoff games. The most relevant thing is who the Bills are, who these teams are now. And I think that, Sean McDermott, Joe Brady, they've kind of looked back at the same trends you guys talked about, and they've kind of been preparing for this moment. And the way they've been doing it is we're going to become a lot more run heavy. When Brady took over, it wasn't just, okay, we're going to get rid of, Diggs and spread it around more. They became a much more run heavy team. This year, Josh Allen has less than 1 sack per game, and he has 8 turnovers all year. And that's in, 18, 19 starts. So that's how this team wants to win. And the way they do it is they hand the ball to James Cook. First playoff game, 23 carries. Second playoff game, 17 carries. His 2 playoff games under Brady last year, 18 carries and 18 carries, including a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. James Cook still got 18 carries when he wasn't even as much of a high usage back last year. So I think that's how the Buffalo Bills are going to approach this game, limit the turnovers and make, the Chiefs beat themselves if they can. And, then late in the game, if they need Josh Allen, they'll use his legs and all that. But this team is using either a fullback or a 6 offensive lineman on over 40% of its offensive snaps this year. So it doesn't really matter the run game matchup because the Chiefs are number 2 against running backs, but the Bills already faced the number 1 team, the Ravens, and the number 3 team, the Broncos, and James Cook averaging 20 carries per game in that spot. So I think that's what we're going to see more of is James Cook has become really the focal point of this offense.
The Bills' love of running the ball has reached such mainstream proportions in that jumbo package, Raybon, that you talk about with the 6th offensive lineman. It was actually a feature in the Wall Street Journal this week. How will the Buffalo Bills finally beat the Kansas City Chiefs? They will use their 6th offensive lineman. They will use that package. That's what people want to believe. I don't necessarily believe the Bills will win, but I totally agree with your pick. Surprise, I'm going with Raybon, and I'm going with James Cook over his carry total, whether it's 13.5 or 14.5. I love Simon's pick. I don't love the Keon Coleman pick. Feels like too much variance for me, but I'm going with Raybon's pick here. What is it, Koerner?
I mean, the last time I gave you Keon Coleman, he had that 64-yard bomb against the Lions, right? So that was fun. I'll enjoy it by myself. It's okay.
Koerner, silently bitter. He remembers everything. He's such a nice guy, but he remembers everything. Listen, folks,
of course.
If you want to make extra money daily from your sports betting, do you want to make extra money daily from your sports betting? I'm always about finding ways to take sports betting to the next level, and that's exactly why I'm pumped to tell you about Edge Boost, but the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit with the Edge Boost Visa debit card. You're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy, and casino transactions. That's free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit and will never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. So stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today. That's edgeboost.bet. All right, everyone knows my favorite stat in the Action Network universe is our luck rankings, taking all the noise out of randomness, give us a more accurate picture of a team's performance. With that, let's bring in Dr. Nick Giffen. Dr. Nick, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. Look, I'm on Keon Coleman as well. I'm going to take that most receiving yards in the game there that Sean posted in our Discord.
Fine,
so,
I'll bet it. I'll just do it.
I love it.
I've been bullied.
But Chad, I'm here to rain on everybody's parade, unfortunately. We have 2 luck unders today. So we're going to go. Yep, I know. I agree. I wish we had 2 high-scoring absolute bangers. That'd be awesome. But game 1, Philly, Washington, under 47.5, minus 120. Most places have 47, but you can get 47.5 minus 120. It is worth it because it lands on exactly 47, around 3.5% of the time, which makes up that difference between minus 110 and minus 120 there. So definitely willing to pay those 10 cents there. This luck total minus 1.8 luck unders, 24-9 to the under in the playoffs over the last 7 years. That's 72%. Obviously, we talked about Jalen Hurts. His knee is hurting a little bit. How is that going to affect his mobility? How is it going to affect his accuracy? So maybe some questions on the Philly side of the ball there. On Washington's side of the ball, they should struggle on the ground versus this Philly, front seven. Washington they use man or gap runs at the 7th highest rate, but Philadelphia is actually top 3 in the NFL in defensive success rate allowed against man gap runs in terms of preventing success, right? So this is a spot where Washington could struggle to move the ball as well. So maybe some questions on both sides of the ball here. Another stat I often like to look at is something called over possessions. These teams have combined for nearly 63 minutes of possession this year. Well, they can only combine for 60 minutes of possession barring OT, so you can't really look at these teams' season-long scoring averages because they won't be on the field as much. So that should help a little. Winds don't look as bad as they did earlier in the week, so 9 miles an hour shouldn't really affect anything. But this is the third time these two teams have faced off this year. Some familiarity there could also keep this down. That does tend to be one of our trends that we look at the division matchup.
All right. What's number 2?
All right. Number 2, we're going Buffalo, Kansas City. I do like the under 49, but I'm going to go to the second half under 24.5 minus 120. Now, second half under also includes overtime. So this comes with a bonus bet, Chad. I'm betting overtime 13-1 in this game. It does fit the overtime model. It's a nice little hedge. You can, bet a unit on the second half under, hedge it a little bit with a quarter unit on overtime 13-1. Luck total minus 1.7 here. So also a luck under fitting that 72% trend. Both of these defenses, they love to live in these too high safety shells. Chiefs do it the second most in the NFL, and the Bills the 5th most. And that is kind of intended to control explosive plays, keep teams in front of you, force you to move the ball down the field. So could be a lot of dink and dunk in this game, which should help the under. And then also, both teams really try to control possession in the second half with a lead. I know our former colleague Anthony DeBundo has been on the Chiefs' second half unders all year. This is just another spot to do that. And if we look at their first and second half combined points scored, it's 26.8 in the first half versus 26.2 in the second half, so a little bit less. But especially in points allowed, these teams combined for 21 points allowed in the first half versus just 19 points allowed in the second half. So some second half unders both offensively and defensively for these teams combined.
Yeah, the Chiefs under has been a pretty trendy bet for a lot of sharp bettors across the action universe all season long. Nick, you are a resident Commanders fan. You just heard Simon give the lowdown on his take on the Eagles Commanders game. Give me your thoughts on that game and the Commanders' chances, and if you are playing a side at all.
I'm not playing a side in that one. I would lean slightly towards the Commanders +6, only maybe partly because of my heart, but also I think they could stack the box against Saquon here with Jalen's potential mobility issues. So that could come into play, but I'm not picking a side, honestly, there. I just hope Simon's wrong. I love you, Simon. I hope you're wrong, though, because I want my Commanders in the Super Bowl.
Well, I hope he's right, Nick.
I understand.
Listen,
for the betting purposes, I hope he's right.
Good luck to everybody. Exactly. I have no hate. I have no hate in my heart. And nobody should hate our quick slip links. That is the fastest way to tail Koerner, Raybon, Nick, Simon, all of our experts' picks. Will be using the quick slip links that are provided in the YouTube chat and in the episode description. As the guys give out their picks, you can go into those places, see the quick slip links, click, go make your bet. All right, our final block. We're talking about some bonus bets. Anything on the board, fellas? Sean Koerner, you're up first.
I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy at +200. This is the touchdown prop we're showing the biggest edge in our prop tool right now. And as you know, Chad, the top values in the touchdown prop tool have been crushing this year. So he's the biggest edge at the moment. And, last week, the Chiefs passing offense really flowed through Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy. He's really started to come on towards the end of the season, and it's continued in the playoffs. He ran route on 88% of Mahomes dropbacks last week. That was the second highest rate of the season for him. And he has the ability to score from anywhere with his speed. But they do just, they scheme up design run play, shovel passes for him near the goal line. He nearly scored on one of them last week, just came up inches short, and then, Kareem Hunt vultured him from there. But I also mentioned that the Bills, they passed up on him in the first round. He's mentioned he has a chip on his shoulder because of that. So if he needed any extra motivation for today, not only just playing to go to the Super Bowl, but he's playing against a team that passed him up in the draft that he's pissed at. So I have the fair price for him closer to plus 150 here. So I like the value we're getting at plus 200 on Worthy.
Yeah, your touchdown projections have been crushing this year. And I feel like, did we talk about Worthy on last week's show? I remember when he fell short, I'm like, oh, I feel like we came so close to getting that from one of our picks. And I can't remember if it was on the show or if I heard you do it talking about it somewhere else, but certainly I know you were pimping it. Simon, what do you got?
Going with Zach Ertz anytime touchdown. And it's nice to see my guy Chris is on him, because that gives me confidence, because I really am not great with these props. Let's be upfront. And I basically look at this one from the position of, it's Jaden Daniels. Like, this guy is so smart, so mature. He knows which people to trust, especially when he gets in the red zone. It's been Ertz. Like, you look at their last couple of games, he's really developed something in him with here, especially in the red zone. And the fact that he has 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games is incredible. I mean, Ertz was basically left for dead, and he's kind of been brought back to life here with Jaden Daniels and his style of play. So the fact that you have a guy who in a small box, he's so incredible at getting open in really tight windows, and he has a quarterback that trusts him, I think the value is there, especially at plus 300. So to me, this probably should be closer to plus 250. You're getting a free bump here just because he has been on such an insane streak. So I love that value right now on Ertz anytime touchdown.
Like it. Raybon, your last play.
Yeah, so I'm going right back to James Cook here. He scored in 13 of 18 games. And I think one of the most interesting things about this spot for the Bills is that really most of the playoffs, we've just been kind of waiting, like, when is Josh Allen going to throw the football? When are the Bills finally going to unleash him? I think the most interesting thing to do here is just kind of play the Bills to keep doing what they've been doing. Because that's, when you look at recent data, that's usually the most predictive, and it makes a lot of sense here. So the Bills, since Joe Brady took over, they've had just as many rushing touchdowns in the playoffs as passing touchdowns. And that's crazy considering you have one of the better quarterbacks of, this last decade, under center. So love me some James Cook here. I don't think the books can set this number high enough.
All right, look, I'm going with Xavier Worthy here. I love Koerner's touchdown projections. I've loved him all year. I agree with his take. If you want to play all 3 of these, get him now, plus 25-ish, maybe 26-ish, 100 on DraftKings. This has been the Conference Championship Preview Edition of Convince Me. Stick around for the touchdown show. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Convince Me crew, and welcome to the touchdown show for Conference Championship Sunday. I am Gilles Gallant with the Action Network, along with Brian Matthews, and we've got Dr. Nick Giffen joining us again this week, who has been red hot. He has hit a touchdown bet now, Nick, in all but 2 playoff games so far. So, Nick, I can't wait to see what we've got up coming here for touchdown bets. So here's how it works. The 3 of us, we're going to go through both of the conference championship games, but we're going to make a touchdown bet for all 4 teams. And we're going to have some touchdown same game parlays as well for each conference championship game. And now, a reminder, every touchdown bet that we give out today, it's going to be in the YouTube description or in the YouTube chat. We're going to have quick slips that will take you directly to the sportsbook where you can make that bet if you want to tail. And I can't wait to show you what we got. So let's start with Commanders Eagles. Eagles, 6-point home favorites. There's a total of 47. Let's start on the Commanders side, gentlemen. And let's look at those touchdown odds right in the top 5. You got Terry McLaurin favored to actually score the anytime touchdown on the Commander side at plus 140, followed by Brian Robinson Jr. at 2-1, Jaden Daniels at plus 220, Zach Ertz up to plus 330 now, and Austin Eckler at plus 330. Now, the Commanders, 2 incredible wins here in the playoffs over the Bucks and Lions. B-Matt, why don't you start us off? What do you like for an anytime touchdown on the Commanders side?
Yeah, so I was looking at the board, and one of the guys, one player in particular, the odds just kind of stood out, and it's more of an odds play than anything else. It's Brian Robinson Jr., anytime touchdown at plus 200. And So when I look at this, and Jill, you actually brought this to my attention that Brian Robinson has scored in every single game he's played in Philly. And then conversely, in the 2 games that they have played in Washington, he hasn't scored a single touchdown. Now, obviously, that's not the end all be all, but that does help a little bit. I look also at the fact that he's got 3 or more red zone carries in 6 of his last 7 games, 4 last game. So I think, look, if they get down there in the valuable, inside the 5, I think it's going to be Brian Robinson territory. Obviously, you kind of have to worry about Jaden Daniels too. But look, the volume's there inside the red zone where it matters. So at plus 200, I like Brian Robinson to score.
It's interesting how the market has kind of shifted with the way that the running game is with the Commanders, where almost the line now for Brian Robinson feels a little soft in comparison to what we have seen in previous matchups. So Brian Robinson Jr., that is who you are betting to score an anytime touchdown at 2-1. I'm going to go with Zach Ertz again. He's around 3-1. We took him last week on the show. He scored last week versus Detroit. So now he has 8 touchdowns this year if you include the playoff game. And what I liked about that game as well, 5 targets, but 3 of those were inside the red zone. So that means now he has 24 red zone targets this year. And Jaden Daniels, the one thing too about those 2 playoff games playing against the Bucs and the Lions, those defenses blitz a lot, and Jaden Daniels has just pretty much been crushing the blitz for the season, and the Eagles are actually bottom 5 in blitz, like to sit back more in coverage. And when they played the first time, Eagles didn't blitz as much. Their blitz weight was closer to their season average, and you saw Ertz, he had a bit of a decent game, ended up catching a garbage time touchdown at the end. But in the second matchup, when Jalen Hurts got hurt, Vic Fangio and that defense, they kind of blitzed way more than usual, and then Ertz didn't really have that great of a game. So I think now we're going to see more of what we saw in that first matchup. I think we'll see more targets for Ertz in the red zone. So at this price, it's my favorite touchdown bet for a Commander's side. Nick, you're looking at a Commander, and as our resident Commander fan, who do you like?
Yeah, well, go Commanders first of all. But second of all, I am going to go with the other Commanders running back, Austin Eckler, but I'm not taking him for an anytime touchdown. I'm going to take him for a first half touchdown at 7-1. I disagree a little bit with B-Matt in that I don't think Brian Robinson is the only guy that gets the goal line carries. Austin Eckler has 4 rushing touchdowns this year, 3 of them coming inside the 5-yard line. The other one was a big one he broke from around the 25, 27-yard line against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And people think of Eckler as this pass-catching back, and, he's more likely to score in the second half if the Commanders are trailing. But, again, all of his touchdowns are running touchdowns this year, no receiving touchdowns. All 4 touchdowns have also come in the first half. So I think we're just weighing this, Austin Eckler, Commanders trailing versus the Eagles as underdogs. That means they're going to throw in the second half, so he's more likely to score in the second half. I think that's just weighed too heavily here by the books. He's 7-1 for a first half touchdown versus plus 550 right now for a second half touchdown, and that just doesn't jive with what's taken place so far this year. So if Austin Eckler finds the end zone, it's probably just as likely to be in the first half, maybe even more likely in the first half, yet we're getting longer odds. So I'm going to take Austin Eckler, first half touchdown, 7-1.
I love when you find these first half, second half type of splits for players. Like, I think you were the first person that brought to my attention about the Sam Laporta run of him scoring first half touchdowns, and then also of the wanting to bet Jamar Chase for a second half touchdown, how you could get more inflated value as a result. So I love the track record of these type of second half bets, and Austin Eckler, first half touchdown. Awesome bet here at 7-1. So let's recap the Commander side. Nick is on Eckler, first half touchdown. I'm on Zach Ertz for an anytime touchdown. And B-Matt is going to take Brian Robinson Jr., many men, for a touchdown at 2-1. All right, let's now move to the other side. Let's move to the Eagles side. And naturally at the top, you have Saquon Barkley at minus 220. Then you've got Jalen Hurts at minus 115. Then you've got the pair of receivers of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, one at plus 160, Smith at plus 200. Rounded out that top 5 is tight end Dallas Goedert at plus 350. Nick, I think you might be having a repeat bet from last week. Who do you like on the Eagles side? I think we might know.
Yeah, you went with Ertz last week. He scored. I'm going to go back the well with Devontae Smith, who did not score, but that's okay. We're getting him at 2-1 here. And this is a spot where the Eagles may have to throw a little bit more than expected. And if that's the case, I think Devontae Smith could be the guy with A.J. Brown kind of, is he still ailing? Is he not? He hasn't really been effective lately. He'd be the guy that sees more of LaShawn Lattimore. And the Commanders in the first meeting this year, they actually led for most of the first 3 quarters of the game against the Eagles. So the Eagles were actually in the pass heavy script, despite being at home in the team's first meeting. Of course, Philly came back to win in the fourth quarter. So it's not necessarily going to be a leading game script. You've got Jalen Hurts. He's hurting. And if that limits, and Chris Raybon talked about this earlier this week, if that limits his scrambling ability, then a few of those dropbacks that turn into scrambles are not going to turn into pass attempts. So there's going to be a few extra pass attempts potentially for Jalen Hurts, which only could help a guy like Devontae Smith finding the end zone. And Devontae, he's useful in all facets of coverage, whether it's cover 2, cover 3, 4, man coverage, single high, double high, safety looks, pressure, no pressure. He sees lots of volume in pretty much any split you look at. So I'm not too worried about, the matchup here, especially because A.J. Brown could be seeing more of Marshawn Lattimore than Devontae Smith. So I like Devontae Smith to find the end zone at 2-1.
I like that you brought up about where he is useful, just because a lot of the time you look at man coverage, zone coverage, cover 2, like Devontae Smith kind of thrives against any coverage. So I don't want to call it a safe pick, but to be able to take those kinds of things out of the equation and know that you're getting a player who can thrive in almost all scenarios, I think that's why I love Devontae Smith as well to score a touchdown in this game. B-Matt, you're on the tight end. You like Dallas Goedert?
Yeah, so look, I had Devontae Smith, and I realized, look, there are only 2 games, and we need a little variety, right? How exciting is it if we're all on the same pick? So,
hey, man, I like a collab just like anybody else.
Hey,
though.
I agree, but too many, let's spread the board here a little bit. So, look, I agree with Nick in the sense that I think Jalen Hurts will be a little bit more limited. I think that Washington is going to sell out to try to stop the run. Saquon has just absolutely destroyed them on both occasions this year, and he's just been rolling lately. So I think this is a game where we are going to see a little more passing, and I think in turn you kind of look at the weaponry and you say, all right, well there's 3 main guys that are involved, and I think the safest floor belongs to Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. AJ Smith, we talked about the inner excellence and not knowing how excellent he will be that day, but I just think that Dallas Goedert at plus 350 being out there, being a heavy target in Washington, not defending tight ends well. I just think this is one where I can see Dallas Goedert scoring.
Well, he did play over like 90% of snaps too last week, so it's not like there's a backup that could potentially come in and vulture him on a tight end 2 scale.
Now Calcaterra is going to score.
He's going to go on his first touchdown too for Calcaterra probably coming up as well. All right, so Dallas Goedert for an anytime touchdown is who B-Man is on. I'm going to take a wild swing on a long shot here. So yesterday I was ready to take this at 10-1, and then I woke up today and now it is at 20-1. So I immediately logged it on the Action app this morning as soon as I saw it. I'm going to take the backup running back, Kenneth Gainwell, at 20-1. I put a quarter unit on that. So let's talk about this wild, far-fetched idea that Saquon Barkley will not run for 3 touchdowns. So Kenneth Gainwell, part of why I'm doing this is I'm going to bank a little bit on the Eagles' predictability of how much they run and also just potential fatigue. Like Saquon Barkley, as awesome as he is, 51 carries in 2 playoff games, played over 86% of snaps over those 2 games. As awesome as he is, I just don't think that that's sustainable. And even last week against the Rams, he had to leave for a couple snaps with a hand injury, immediately came back in. And again, the Eagles' run rate as well, they're the highest rate in the NFL. It's carried over to the postseason. They don't really deviate too much from that game plan. We've talked about Jalen Hurts, a bit banged up. Maybe the rushing attempts for him will drop as well. And again, Nick, cover your ears. Non-zero chance we might see a blowout in the second half. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but again, if that does happen, again, don't stay on the stream. Please don't leave.
You mean when the Commanders are blowing the Eagles out, right?
Yeah. All right. So Gainwell, for me, I just think there's a non-zero chance he could get more late run as well in the red zone if this game is already out of hand. So at 20-1, that's my favorite long shot of the day. Kenneth Gainwell, 20-1 is who I'm taking for a quarter unit. So let's recap on the Eagle side. Nick is on Devontae Smith at 2-1. BMAT is on Dallas Goedert at plus 350. And I'm going to take a swing on Kenneth Gainwell at 20-1 for a quarter unit. Let's do a same game parlay for this game, though, because Nick, I think you made a very compelling case. Devontae Smith, B-Matt, you already talked about it, how you were looking at Devontae as well. So
Yep.
I think that's the safe, not the safe leg, but the guy that I think we should put as one of the legs for the same game parlay. But B-Matt, I wanted to talk to you about Jaden Daniels, because I know that you're pretty high on the potential rush attempts we may see for Jaden today. What do you think about adding him as the second leg for the same game parlay?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think, I think the touchdown regression is he hasn't scored, hasn't been scoring at the rate, obviously, he opened the season with. I don't think that was sustainable anyways when you open with a 2-touchdown game. But
That's true. Against the Bucs,
I think that Jaden Daniels does a very good job of understanding that a 2-yard gain is much better than an incompletion. And in the sense that it sounds very logical, but, a lot of times quarterbacks throw the ball away if they don't see anything down. He's running and scrambling to get a yard or two. And when you do that over and over again, it makes a difference. Plus, you get the rush attempts. So I was on his rush attempts early in the week. And anytime that, you have somebody, I liked it at 10, I like it at 10.5. Anytime you've got somebody with his athleticism running that much, I think he got a decent shot for a touchdown.
Beauty. So we're going to add him as the second leg of the same game parlay. So when you put those two together at DraftKings right now, you parlay those two, that comes out to around plus 850. So we're going to bet that today. That's going to be the same game parlay for the NFC Championship, Devontae Smith and Jaden Daniels touchdown parlay at plus 850. Now, if you want access to all of Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Koerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, along with real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code POWER20 at sign up. One more time, that's POWER20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, let's now move to the AFC Championship, Bills Chiefs heavyweight matchup. Chiefs right now 2-point favorites, 1.5 depending on the book. It's been moving between 1.5 and 2.5 all week, but the total sitting at 48.5 for the AFC Championship game. Let's start with the visiting team. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. And right at the top of the list, probably the most popular player to score a touchdown this week, more than Saquon, is Josh Allen, sitting there around minus 115. Followed by James Cook at plus 140, Khalil Shakir at plus 265. Then you've got Dalton Kincaid now up to 4-1, and Keon Coleman, rookie wide receiver, at plus 450. All right, well, gentlemen, we have to do this. And I'm not saying I don't like the top 5 to score, but there's a guy now on this team that I think we have to collab on. So I'm going to put this out there. Dawson Knox, anytime touchdown to score today, around 7-1. I'm going to put a half unit on this, guys, because for me, he's still running a route on 80% of dropbacks, 6 touchdowns in 12 career playoff games. So he's got that playoff pedigree. One thing I like, too, when you look back through his history, he's got at least 1 receiving touchdown in each postseason of his career, except the rookie season where he wasn't really playing that much. But now Dalton Kincaid, I'm not saying you don't want to maybe look at him for yards or maybe even receptions, because from a season standpoint, did pretty well against man defense. Chiefs do play a lot of man defense, but when you look at since Kincaid returned to the lineup after that injury, Knox has played more snaps and only ran like a handful of routes less than Kincaid. It's not that much of a difference where one guy should be plus 400 and another guy should be plus 700, right? So, B-Matt, I know that you have that affinity for Dawson Knox just like I do. Are you riding with me?
You know it, man. I mean, right away when it was the Chiefs, it was like, if we get above like 6-1, it's got to be Dawson Knox. Yes.
All right. And Nick, you tailing?
Like, I didn't have a ton I liked on the Bills side this game, just because of the odds, right? They're juiced, everybody wants to bet Josh Allen touchdown. He's minus 110, minus 115, all that stuff. So it just becomes really hard to bet at those price points. But I like your point about the snap rates, the route rates. So yeah, I'm in. I'm tailing G-Dog 5,000. I'm tailing B-Matt on Dawson Knox. I'll go quarter unit on this. I'm not going to go half unit like you, Mr. Gallant, but I'll go quarter unit Dawson Knox 7-1. You convinced me with the usage amounts there since Kincaid has returned from injury.
Well, the other thing too is I feel like this game is ripe for long shots. Like you look past like the Kincaid line of 4-1 of like you've got Amari Cooper out there at 7-1. You've got Curtis Samuel. I mean, you actually I think are fading Curtis Samuel as well. You wrote about that on Action Network this week for a reception prop, so you go check that out. But again, I just think that Dawson Knox of the group, that's my favorite long shot of the game. I think you guys agree. So that's what we're going to look at for the Bills. We are taking Dawson Knox at 7-1. We're going for a squad ride on the collab on Dawson Knox. Now let's move to the Chiefs side, gentlemen. Another popular player right at the top of the list. You got Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce at plus 125. Then you've got Kareem Hunt at plus 185, Xavier Worthy at 2-1, Isaiah Pacheco now at 2-1, and rounding out that top five, Marquise Brown at plus 280. Hollywood Brown now in the top five for touchdown odds for the Chiefs. B-Matt, why don't you start us off? Who do you like to score in this game?
Yeah, this is another situation where I figured you and I might align on picks. So and again, we got to spread the board here. Only 2 games. So I'm going to go Kareem Hunt anytime touchdown at plus 185, a 1-unit play here. I think, look, Kareem Hunt's the guy. I think when it's important to look whenever you see a football team situationally, who do they give the ball to on fourth and 1 on short yardage situations? And then also, who do they give the ball to near the goal line? And I like Kareem Hunt. He's that guy. It's very seldom that he loses yards on a carry, and that's very important as a running back. So I'm going to go Kareem Hunt anytime touchdown at plus 185. I just think that they're going to feed him near the goal line if they get there.
Yeah, I really thought Isaiah Pacheco would take this role back when he came back from injury, but is not really getting the red zone looks, hasn't scored a touchdown since he's returned. Kareem Hunt has clearly earned that role back. So Kareem Hunt at plus 185, I think is a solid look. I'm going back. I'm a sucker for punishment, and there is nobody who's more frustrating to bet for a touchdown, I think, than Xavier Worthy in the NFL right now because of the talent and just where he seems to just fall short when you bet on him. But I'm, again, sucker for punishment, masochist. I'm going right to Xavier Worthy again at 2-1. Because, again, we bet him last week, and we came away kind of disappointed, tackled at the 1-yard line. But why I'm encouraged? 4 red zone looks. And for the season, including the playoffs, 29 red zone touches for the rookie, with 6 receiving touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns. And for what it's worth, when they did play in week 12, he did score. So I thought this should be closer to like plus 165. So again, I'm looking at the value here. I think that's probably one of the better values on the board for the Chiefs. But Nick, you like another Chiefs wide receiver that was not in that top 5. Who do you like to score?
Yeah, I'm going to go DeAndre Hopkins here. Plus 340 is what I got him at. He's still right around there. Totally fine with anything with a 3 in front of it. I just think the odds are too long for a guy with 4 touchdowns in 11 games for the Chiefs, right? That's, if you were to just say 4 touchdowns in 11 games and there were 4 touchdowns in 4 different games, which they weren't, we'll get to that. That would be 36% of the games. One of them was a multi-touchdown game. So really he scored a touchdown in 27.3% of the games. So at plus 340, that's 22.7 implied probability that we need. And he's already cleared that with 4 touchdowns in 11 games in scoring in 3 of those 11 games. Now, yes, I get it. His routes are down, especially in the playoffs. Hollywood Brown wasn't in some of those games. I'm factoring all that in. I'm still showing value here. I think this is a spot, an extra spot where DeAndre Hopkins could get looked at because all 4 of his touchdowns with the Chiefs this year have come inside the 10-yard line. And 9 red zone targets, all of them have come within 11 yards of the end zone, right? So he's had nothing from 12 to 20 yards away from the end zone. All 9 red zone targets he's had have been within 11 yards of the end zone. So when they get there, when the Chiefs get there, yeah, they're potentially giving it to Kareem Hunt. Maybe they'll give it to Worthy on a handoff, those kinds of things. But they're also looking for DeAndre Hopkins. And what do you do against the Buffalo Bills' 2 high safety looks? You dink and dunk against them. Buffalo loves to keep teams in front of them. They allow one of the lowest average depths of target in the league. So that's going to extend some Kansas City drives where Kansas City kind of just has to work their way down the field instead of scoring on these explosive plays. That'll set up those red zone targets where they have been targeting DeAndre Hopkins. And he's a big body there. He's a big target. So I think he has a good chance of catching a touchdown pass if that situation plays out against Buffalo, where you're kind of dinking and dunking to move the ball against them.
Well, especially too with some of the Bills' injuries now in the secondary, I think that's another added edge as well for Hopkins. Nick, you've convinced me Hopkins is amazing, so I think we should have him as one of the legs for the same game parlay in this game. So DeAndre Hopkins, we're going to have him as the first leg of the same game parlay. So initially, when we were talking about this, I was like, "Oh, let's do Nuke and Knox. It'll roll right off the tongue. It's a great parlay." But then I was like, you know what? I want a piece of Josh Allen somehow. I know that it's steamed. I know that it's juiced. I think we should just put him as part of the parlay with DeAndre Hopkins. I think that's like, I'm not trying to be too safe, but also I'm trying to not be too carried away. Like I think Dawson Knox, you could just bet on his own, especially considering he'll pay more than just this parlay by himself. So why don't we put those two together? Because when you parlay them together right now at FanDuel, it comes out to around plus 625. So I think we could put a half unit on that and be able to have some action on a guy who I feel pretty confident about Josh Allen scoring. And I feel even more confident now about DeAndre Hopkins scoring after Nick explained about how he is used in the red zone. So that is the parlay for the AFC Championship game. We're going with DeAndre Hopkins and Josh Allen. You can find that at plus 625 at FanDuel. Well, gentlemen, that's all for today. Like, we're going to be back here, but the Touchdown Show will be back here for the Super Bowl on Super Bowl Sunday, live right after Convince Me during the Action Network Power Hour. And if you missed the Touchdown Show, you want to get our picks, you could check out the YouTube description again, or the even YouTube chat. Like I said, we have quick slips for all of these touchdown bets. For each bet, it'll take you right to the sports book to tail that touchdown prop. And you could also download the Action app. All of our touchdown bets are tracked there. You can get them as well with pick notifications. So thank you again for joining us for Conference Championship Sunday. I'm Gilles Gallant. That's BMAT. That's Nick Giffen. Bon chance.